people who live closest to us often feel the safest. But sometimes, the most disturbing nightmares come from the house right next door. Nightmare 1. When I moved into the small rental house, the landlord described the neighborhood as quiet and safe. The first few weeks felt peaceful. The street was calm, the neighbors didn't seem intrusive, and for the first time in a long time, I could sleep with my windows open without hearing traffic or loud music. The only house that seemed different was the one directly next door. I rarely saw anyone outside. No cars coming or going regularly, no voices, no visitors. Occasionally, a porch light would turn on late at night, but during the day, the house looked almost empty. At first, I didn't think much about it until I started hearing something near the fence. It usually happened late at night, after midnight, when everything else was completely still. A slow, dragging sound, like something being pulled across dirt or wood. At first, I assumed it was an animal, or maybe tree branches shifting in the wind, but the sound was too deliberate, too steady, like someone moving carefully, trying not to make noise. The next morning, I noticed footprints near the back of the house. At first, I told myself they were probably mine, but the ground had been dry for days, and these prints looked fresh, deeper, like someone had been standing in the same place for a while. They stopped directly beneath my bedroom window. That uneasy feeling stayed with me the rest of the day. I started closing the blinds at night, something I had never worried about before. But the sounds continued. Every few nights, sometime between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., I'd hear movement along the fence, sometimes slow footsteps, sometimes that same dragging noise. Then one night around 2:30 a.m., I woke up to a faint tapping sound. 3 slow taps, pause, 3 more taps. At first I thought I was dreaming, then I heard it again, 3 taps. My eyes adjusted to the darkness. That's when I noticed it. A shadow. Someone was standing inches from the glass. I couldn't see their face clearly through the blinds, but I could see the shape of a head, shoulders, completely motionless, watching. I was too afraid to move, too afraid to even reach for my phone. The shadow remained there for what felt like several minutes, not making a sound. Then slowly, it shifted. The silhouette moved sideways until it disappeared out of view. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. As soon as the sun came up, I went outside to look. Fresh footprints covered the dirt below the window. Not just one set, several overlapping impressions, like someone had been standing there multiple times over several nights. But what disturbed me most was what I noticed near the fence. Hidden partially behind a bush was a chair, not one of mine, positioned perfectly so someone could stand on it and see directly over the fence, straight into my bedroom window. The legs of the chair had left deep marks in the soil, suggesting it had been there for quite a while. Suddenly, every strange sound made sense. Someone had been watching me, not just once, but repeatedly. I began replaying every night in my head, wondering how many times I had unknowingly gone to sleep with someone standing just a few feet away, observing everything. 2 weeks later, I broke my lease and moved out. I never told the landlord the real reason why. Being watched is terrifying. But the next nightmare proves sometimes the worst neighbor isn't the one you see. It's the one who gets a little too comfortable being part of your life. If you're enjoying these nightmares, consider subscribing to Nightmare Central. Nightmare 2. When the new neighbor moved in, he introduced himself the very first day. just wanted to introduce myself," he said casually. "I live next door." At first, I thought I had gotten lucky. He offered to keep an eye on the house when I mentioned I worked long hours. He told me he worked nights, which meant someone was almost always around if something ever happened. It felt reassuring, at least at the beginning. A few days later, he knocked on my door to let me know a package had been delivered while I was gone. "I didn't want porch pirates grabbing it," he explained. I thanked him. It seemed thoughtful. Then a few days later, he mentioned another package, then another. Eventually, he started pointing out small things. "You got home later than usual yesterday. Busy week?" I assumed he was just being conversational. People notice routines. That's normal, right? But then the comments became more specific. "You usually leave around 7:30, don't you? I noticed your light stayed on in the living room pretty late last night." I didn't remember telling him that. Still, I convinced myself it wasn't a big deal. Until he asked how my doctor's appointment went. I had never mentioned a doctor's appointment. I paused, unsure how to respond. One evening, I left work early because of a sudden headache. As I turned onto my street, I noticed his car parked outside his house. Before I even had time to put the car in park, he stepped outside onto his porch. He looked directly at me and smiled. "Home early today." My hands froze on the steering wheel. I hadn't even opened the car door yet. That night, I walked through my house slowly, noticing something I had never really paid attention to before. From his upstairs window, you could see directly into nearly every room of my house. I suddenly understood how easy it would be for someone to learn my routine just by watching. I started closing every blind in the house before sunset. I stopped turning on unnecessary lights. I even began changing small parts of my routine, leaving at different times just to see if he would notice. He did. "You switched up your schedule?" he asked casually one afternoon. That was the moment my unease turned into fear. 2 days later, I installed security cameras facing the driveway and the front of the house. The first night they were active, I barely slept. At 1:13 a.m., my phone vibrated with a motion alert. Someone was outside. I opened the camera feed and felt my chest tighten. He was standing in the street, facing my house, not moving, not on his phone, not walking, just watching. Minutes passed, and he remained completely still. Eventually, he slowly turned and walked back inside his house without ever looking away from my windows. The next morning, I avoided going outside. I packed a bag that afternoon. Within a week, I found another place to live. I never told him I was moving. I never gave a reason. Even now, whenever someone describes a neighbor as friendly, I hesitate, because sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the ones who try to hide what they're doing. Sometimes they stand right in the open, watching, learning, waiting, and the scariest part, you never really know how long it's been happening. I thought being watched from across the street was terrifying. But the next story proves your neighbor doesn't even need a window to see inside your life anymore. Sometimes, the people who claim they're trying to keep you safe are the ones quietly learning everything about you. Nightmare 3. I joined a neighborhood safety app after several package thefts were reported in my area. The idea was simple. Neighbors could share updates about suspicious activity, post security clips, and help keep the area safe. One user stood out immediately. His name was Daniel. He was active in almost every discussion. He offered advice on camera placement, lighting upgrades, ways to prevent break-ins. He even volunteered to help elderly residents install doorbell cameras. People appreciated him. He seemed genuinely interested in keeping the neighborhood safe. When a package was stolen from my porch, I posted about it. Daniel responded within minutes. "I live nearby. My camera faces the street. I'll check if I caught anything." Later that day, he sent me a video clip showing someone walking past my house hours before the theft. I felt grateful. It felt like the app was working exactly how it was supposed to. Over time, Daniel continued interacting with my post. He gave helpful suggestions, recommended better lighting positions, explained how certain camera angles reduced blind spots. Eventually, he offered to help me connect my doorbell camera to the community sharing network. He explained it would allow neighbors to quickly identify suspicious activity. It sounded helpful, so I accepted the connection request. Weeks passed. Then one night, I noticed something strange. Daniel commented on a comment I had written in the app, but never posted. It was saved as a draft. I felt confused. There was no way he could have seen that. I checked my account settings. Nothing unusual. No unknown logins. No password reset alerts. Everything looked normal until I reviewed the connected device permissions. Daniel had extended viewing access through the shared network connection. At first, I assumed it only applied to public clips. Then I received an email from an anonymous address. Attached were screenshots, images captured from my own doorbell camera, photos of me leaving for work, returning home, taking out trash, walking my dog late at night. Included was a short message. "You should close your blinds earlier." My hands started shaking. I reported to the police immediately. Police later discovered Daniel had convinced multiple neighbors to grant extended camera permissions under the pretense of improving neighborhood safety. In reality, he had created continuous access to private camera feeds. Authorities found hundreds of saved clips organized by address. Each folder contained patterns, daily routines, times residents left, times they returned, who visited, how long light stayed on. Some folders contain notes. Lives alone. Usually home after 6:30. Garage opens at 7:45 a.m. One folder was labeled Easy Access. Inside were homes where residents lived alone or had predictable routines. My home was inside that folder. Police said he had been quietly collecting footage for months, maybe longer. The most disturbing part wasn't just knowing he had watched me. It was realizing how much of my life had been documented without me ever knowing it was happening. Every routine, every habit, every vulnerable moment, all observed by someone I trusted, because he presented himself as someone trying to help. I disconnected every device in my home that night, because sometimes trust doesn't just open the door. Sometimes it gives someone a window into your entire life. Something even scarier than this nightmare is not watching more videos from Nightmare Central. This was Nightmares of Neighbors. Sleep carefully.